Hi everybody, welcome to iNOD and welcome to World Autism Day. There are, I believe, 190 of you out there from across Canada, from the USA and from the UK, so welcome to all of you from myself and the team at Distinctability and the team behind iNOD. I'm Pete Bennett, I'm one of the two co-founders of Distinctability along with my partner Kimberly Neal, who I'll be introducing shortly. The first iNOD event is designed to be an informative, thought-provoking and entertaining first 2 hours of the iNOD journey, a fairly unique journey that combines neurodiversity with employment and with technology, a combination that is becoming increasingly significant as far as today's world is concerned. I'm just going to talk to you for a couple of minutes, a little bit about housekeeping, and then just about the background to why we are here and where we all are at this moment in time. First of all, as far as housekeeping is concerned, Chris, you will probably have met online. She's our invaluable tech support person. So if there are any issues or challenges that you've got as far as tech is concerned, please just reach out to her. Let us know and we'll try to solve those problems. If they're local connectivity things, then we'll be struggling a little bit as far as that's concerned. Questions, this is pretty critical. We can't see you and we can't hear you, but we can receive your questions. So it's really important that if you've got any questions for the incredible speakers that we've got, please just fire those questions via the Q&A button there, and we will be looking at those questions. I'll moderate them. We're selecting 2 questions for each of the speakers, and then the rest of them we'll be answering over the next couple of days. So we'll be answering everybody's questions. The fact that we're only selecting 2, don't let that hold you back, because we are we're determined to answer as many as we can going forward. You should also have had the symposium guide as far as that's concerned, and if you haven't had that, just let us know and we'll send it to you. And again, just send us a message from that perspective. So we're about to start. The scene in terms of why we are here is really all about what's been happening in the last few weeks. A few weeks ago, the world started to change quite significantly, and we're not here to go into that, but as events everywhere started to be cancelled, conferences were cancelled, we were determined, because of the nature of what we were trying to do, we were determined not to do that. We were absolutely determined that we would create something that could still go ahead in some form. iNOD was so important to us. So the traditional approach that we've taken as far as the conference and symposium is concerned, we talked about and we decided to pivot it into something different, into a virtual event, and to make it free, which is why there are so many people here, I'm assuming, as well as the topics that we're covering as far as the critical subject matter is concerned. We initially decided to turn it into a studio event, and until 2 weeks ago, Dave Baines, one of our speakers, was still flying into Toronto to use the studios of the Disability Channel, one of our supporters and sponsors, to run that event. But then we had to change that again, obviously. So we are now here in our respective bedrooms, offices, houses, delivering this unique event to you, and the first event of the journey that iNOD is. And the reason for our determination to do that was the irony of the situation. And the irony of the situation is the fact that the world is being told to keep apart and to stay apart and to keep our distance. But at this time, it's incredibly important. It's never been more important for everybody to share ideas, to communicate, to collaborate, to explore, to try and uncover and discover new ways of thinking and new ways of working. So we very definitely wanted to deliver that, to help that message and to help you help the people that you're there to provide the vital services to and the vital opportunities for. And on the back of that delivery, where we all find ourselves now, I'd just like to thank the people that came with us as far as that change and that pivot is concerned. The speakers for today, Michael, Alan, Kelly, and David, all of whom worked with us to change their delivery and to compress their their larger presentations into something that will be stimulating, interesting, and entertaining. So thanks so much, and thanks to the sponsors as well, and thanks to the supporters. And one in particular I'd just like to single out, and that's Marilyn Ellis of Autism Job Club and Futures First. Sorry, Marilyn, you've been with us from the beginning, and it's been vital. We could not have done this without you, so thank you so much. I'm going to hand over to Kim now, and Kim has been the driving force behind iNOD, from the name and the brand to the energy that she put behind it and the belief that she's got as far as this concept is concerned. iNOD is a journey. This is the first small part of that journey. But I'm going to hand over to Kim now, who will talk about distinctability, and we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail. Kim, over to you.
Welcome to iNOD on World Autism Day. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. Not quite in the format that we had originally anticipated, but it's all about moving forward and working with what we've got. iNOD, we decided to host on World Autism Day because it seemed like a perfect day to do so. Collectively, it's all about really moving the needle and pushing forward from autism awareness to autism acceptance to autism appreciation and full inclusion in society and in the workplace. So very special day to be doing that. And so I'll give you a little bit about iNOD in a moment. Over our journey and through our careers, we've recognized that people on the autism spectrum and with many other similar and neurodifferences and other disabilities, there's a huge talent pool there. The skills, the abilities, the potential was quickly recognized and in all of the work that we had done and are doing over the years. We also recognized in our work with Autism Job Club so closely and volunteering there and working with the members, we recognized that the challenges and the barriers that were being faced, not only with people on the spectrum accessing the workforce, but also upon obtaining employment, in having some struggles with retention and potentially maintaining that employment if environments were not structured accordingly and accessibly for those individuals. So from that, over the years again, Marilyn and I and a number of supporters and a network of partners, we've hosted numerous events called Higher Autism, and we really put it out there and we focused on bringing people together to share these abilities and the strengths and the tools and solutions. We were successful in doing so, but over the years we always would receive a number of employment support agencies, disability support agencies, which is amazing. Those people are coming to the table, all of you, many of you, to help to learn the tools and solutions and models that are out there to help your employers and the clients that you support to move forward in their careers. We would often only get a sprinkling of employers, although we felt this message was very important to share. So about a year ago, we started getting phone calls from employers asking or telling us, you know, I have employees, they're great employees, they're contributing to our organization, but we think they're on the autism spectrum, so they may be having some challenges. Can you help us? And so from that point onwards, we realized that not only was there a huge talent pool on the autism spectrum looking for work, but there are many organizations that are already employing people with disabilities, people on the autism spectrum that are already in the workforce who may not have disclosed that they have a disability or that they're on the autism spectrum due to stigma or not wanting to share that. So from there, iNOD was created. iNOD, and the name, stands for Inclusive Neurodiverse Organizational Development, and it's focused on supporting and providing tools, solutions, ideas to not only help and support your existing workforce, but that also sets the groundwork and builds the infrastructure for future employment of the neurodiverse population. Understanding as well now that when iNOD was originally created and developed, the unemployment rate across Canada was approximately 5.5%, whereas the population of people on the autism spectrum, their average employment or unemployment rate was 85%. So going back to what's happened over the last few weeks and that labor market and the people who will be in the job market has expanded greatly. So we will come through this, and the autism population and all the people with disabilities that are exceptional with talents and skills to contribute, they're all still part of that, your workforce currently, as well as potential candidates and employees that are out there. So we really felt that this was important to share. Over our journey and our careers, we've had the honor and privilege of meeting so many incredible organizations, people, that are sharing different programs and ideas and solutions and tools. So we also wanted to create iNOD with the fact of, and really, to be honest, to bring everybody into the room, because that's really where the magic happens. So unfortunately, due to Mother Nature, we're not able to bring everybody to the room. But again, I hope you can see our passion and why we wanted to put this forward. And we're hoping to keep engaging as we move forward, recognizing that many of you that are watching right now also have incredible tools and solutions and models that are working within your organizations. It's all about breaking down those silos and building bridges. There are tools and solutions out there and technologies that are working. They're very person-centric, and in this virtual new world that we're in right now, that is a very important piece. So this is really about bringing people together to start sharing those and moving forward collectively. Bear with me one second. So unfortunately, we're not able to get together today, but we would like to continue sharing, continue the conversations. And with that, on that note, I would like to pass this over to my one of our very strong partners and allies, Marilyn Ellis, the co-founder of Autism Job Club. Marilyn is an exceptional trailblazer and leader supporting people and individuals in the autism space find employment. And from there, she's also a career and mental health counselor and a regular mentor and coach for young autistic adults. Marilyn helped found Autism Job Club, and she always hosts an annual autism and employment conference and a school to work transition program, Project Search, which Marilyn made come to life in the Halton region. Marilyn's famous quote, if you know her, is, "It's a neurodiverse universe." She loves to discover and honor individual differences and being a catalyst to finding the path that fits the person, whether it's formal education or on-the-job training. And with that, I will pass you over to Marilyn.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to iNOD 2020. We hope to make this a regular event, just like the Autism Employment Conference. As Kim already described, I'm with Autism Job Club, and we've been running for 5 years now. Very exciting. It's a peer-to-peer support group, so it's quite unlike any other organization out there because it's for the people by the people. And I want to make a few acknowledgements quickly. First of all, thank you to Distinctability for making this iNOD event possible. And I'll be back to speak to you at the end about the Higher Autism Blueprint, which is a project that was made possible by the Ontario Labour Market Partnerships Program. So I want to acknowledge them. And finally, I want to acknowledge some special guests in our audience this morning. We've got members of Autism Job Club. I won't call you out by name, but hello. And we've got members of Search Halton out there. So hi to you as well. And I was hoping to now turn the mic over to one of my Job Club members, but we had some webcam issues. So I get to raise the flag for World Autism Day. And you might have noticed that the official title is World Autism Awareness Day. But we've learned from our members, our Autism Job Club members, that it's more than awareness. Everybody's aware of autism nowadays. It's more than acceptance. In fact, it's about appreciation and understanding, but they haven't changed the name to World Autism Appreciation Day, but we'll go for that. So with that, I'll turn back over to the person introducing our first panelist.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marilyn. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce you to our first guest and keynote speaker today, Michael McCreary. Michael is a 24-year-old who was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome at the age of 5. At age 13, in an act of self-preservation combined with the desire for constant attention and the inability to stop talking, Michael started doing stand-up comedy. Over the past 6 years, Michael has performed stand-up comedy shows and provided keynote addresses in every province across Canada, plus the Yukon and the United States, and I'm sure he's just getting started. He's an author of the book, Funny, You Don't Look Autistic. He hosted a TED Talks session. He is also, as I found out recently, a very talented saxophone player, and he's also did consultations on the TV show Ransom to ensure the authenticity of a character with autism. And without further ado, please raise your hands or put your hands together for Michael McCreary. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, guys, for coming out to support. Thanks iNOD for bringing me out here today. And it really means a lot that we could keep the stream going in light of current events. There's a lot of confusion around what autism actually is and how it manifests. I mean, upon first glance, I don't look or act stereotypically autistic. Just to put it into perspective for you guys, 1% of the world's population is autistic. That means over 75 million people on the planet are on the autism spectrum. And like this word spectrum would imply, everyone on it is a little bit different, albeit with some similarities. For example, sensory issues. This means you have a problem with certain sights, sounds, textures. Similarity number 2, obsessing on a single subject. Personally, I love film. I do, especially autism movies. Frankly, I'm far more interested in movies made for autistic people. I'll give you some examples. 1, Runaway Train has a train. It's like catnip for autistic people, 5 stars. 2, Great Train Robbery. A lot of train action in this one, and you all know how I feel about trains, another 5 stars. Similarity number 3, difficulty reading other people. After my diagnosis, my folks felt that it was important that I learn social skills. Basically, they taught me how to integrate myself into polite society. When I finally got to school, it appeared that nobody had learned these same things. After a while, I just threw down my arms and yelled, "Is everybody else autistic?" Today, my job was to tell you 2 things about autism. 1, stats and facts. I told you that there are 750 million of us on the planet, and 86% of us are unemployed. Second thing I wanted to tell you about is autism a disability. Personally, I think we can do a lot of jobs as well or better than anyone else. So today, please consider this and give us a chance. I'm Michael McCreary. That's my time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you. Pete, is there any questions for Michael this morning?
I've got one question for Michael. Your book on autistics in film, when's it coming out?
Oh my God, I don't want to tether myself to a release, but I actually do have a working title called Autistic About Film that I am hoping to release sometime in the next 25 to 45 years. So anyways, when that ever comes out, you'll be the first to know.
Okay, that's great. Great job. Thanks ever so much, Michael. Brilliant.
No, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Great.
Right.
Thank you. That was wonderful, Michael. A wonderful way to start the day. So moving along, I have the honor of introducing to you Alan Chris, who is the CEO of Specialist Sterna. Since our first conversation and meeting with Specialist Sterna and the team and Alan, we at Distinctability have been completely inspired by the work, the perspectives, the passion, and the successes that the entire Specialist Sterna Canada has delivered for people and businesses in the autism and neuro-inclusive space. It's an honor to have Alan here today. Specialist Sterna is an organization focused on Canadian businesses and helping them integrate more neurodiversity into their workplace. For over 20 years, Alan has the business experience developing and commercializing new products and services in Canada and abroad as a leader in organizations large and small. Alan sees great opportunity for Canadian businesses to leverage this largely untapped labor pool of candidates on the autism spectrum, all while reaping the benefits and the improvement that this can bring to organizations on a larger scale. Canada is particularly well positioned to lead other countries in engaging and appreciating the neurodiverse workforce and people towards commercial and collective benefit. Alan's focus on finding new ways to solve problems and to explore and develop new opportunities is what makes it an honor to have him today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce and welcome Alan Chris from Specialist Sterna. I'll take it over to you, Alan.
Thanks so much, Kim. Can you guys see me at this point? Okay,
Yes,
great.
indeed. All good.
All right.
Thanks.
So I can't see myself, so I don't actually know what I look like to everybody, but hopefully you can see me okay. What I won't do is thank you for putting me right after Michael. That's not an easy thing to do. But thanks everybody for joining us today. And I'm going to jump into a presentation that we put together about Special Sterna. So let me see if I can pull that up for you. Am I sharing that? Yeah. And can you still see me as well?
Sure can.
Sorry, I'm still learning how to do this, everybody. So it's all new. As Kim said, Special Sterna is an organization that works with businesses around the world. We're part of one of about 15 organizations around the world, and we operate a little bit differently in each place. But our goal is to work with businesses to help them to understand and embrace the opportunity to tap into this talent pool. We work with people on the autism spectrum, and we work with others with what we call similar neurodiversities or other neurodivergent ways of being in the world. And we value all those people, and we're really excited to bring them to the businesses that we work with. Special Sterna started out in Denmark, and it started as an organization that hired individuals and put them to work for other businesses with the sorry, I've lost my train of thought here. Bear with me for just 1 second. Okay, I'm just gonna, can you see me again?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, there's a noise coming from the room beside me. Can you guys just hold on for 1 second? These are the perils of working in a house with too many people. I'll be right back.
No worries, Alan. Sounds good.
We can't hear the noise, Alan, anyway. So.
It's just distracting for me. Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Yeah.
What do you put in this commercial break here?
What do you put in this commercial break? So Marilyn, why don't you talk a little bit about what Autism Job Club is doing over the next few months?
Well, we are sort of transitioning to a work from home, stay at home kind of mode. We're going to be doing something that works well in that format, which is everybody's going to be revamping their resumes. So it's exciting right now. And then the most exciting news is in September, we're moving over from Robert Bateman High School, which is closing here in Burlington, to the Center for Skills Development.
That's exciting. Thank you so much.
No
So
problem.
I'll jump in now.
That's all right. Alan's coming back.
Oh, you're back? Okay.
Sorry about that.
Great. No worries. Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the things that I share with some of my colleagues and friends on the autism spectrum is that I get easily distracted by noises and sounds, and when I'm trying to focus and concentrate and I start hearing something, I lose my train of thought.
I think we all want to know what you did to your children then in that case.
Yeah, well, everything's good. Yeah, everything's good. So yeah, so I'll just jump back in again. So Special Sterna started in Denmark. It started in 2004, and it started by a fellow named Torkel Sonne. And Torkel at the time was working in a sort of the Danish version of Rogers as a senior technology consultant. And he, when his son was 2 years old, he was diagnosed with autism. And so Torkel went out into the community to try to find out what that would mean and to look for support. What would that mean for his family? What would that mean for his son? And how are things going to progress, and where could he get support? And he ended up running one of those support organizations. He was a bit of a natural leader, and he started to see in some of the adults that were on the spectrum who he was meeting some amazing talents and skills that he was often looking for as a manager within that company that he worked in. And so to make a long story short, Torkel started a business, and the business was one that recruited individuals on the autism spectrum and put them to work on projects for other businesses. And I think we have a similar sort of business on the call today from an organization called Auticon. There are other organizations like that. So Auticon started here in Canada around the same time as we did. And there are many organizations around the world who do that sort of work. around 2008, Specialist Sterna had sort of multiplied itself a few times, and it was operating in different countries around the world. And together with some of his colleagues, Torkel started a foundation. The foundation is called the Specialist Sterna Foundation. Now, for those of you who don't know, Specialist Sterna means the specialists in Danish. And the foundation put a goal in front of itself of enabling 1 million jobs around the world. And what that meant was not that what they wanted to do was to hire 1 million people into consulting practices, but rather to take the learnings that they had about how to assess people for their talents and how to create environments where people could be successful and how to provide supportive working situations for people. And they wanted to help the rest of the business and employment community to engage that way. And that's what we do here in Canada. And so most people who are on the call today are from Canada, so you can pat yourselves on the back a little bit. So our goal here is in Canada is 25,000 jobs, and while that doesn't seem like a huge number, it's actually a bit outsized for the rest of the world. The U.S. has a goal of 100,000 jobs. India has a goal of about 100,000 jobs. That would mean for us that where everything is about 1/10, including our dollar, we should be focused on about 10,000 jobs. But we actually think that Canada is better positioned for a variety of different reasons. And so our goal here is to enable 25,000 jobs. And the way we see things and the way Specialist Sterna sees things around the world is that if we can be successful at doing that, we will have had a marked change in the way that the employment market operates in Canada. The way that the foundation for how we hope to achieve that type of success, and when we get to 25,000 jobs, we believe that we'll have enough momentum that this is something that will be self-sustaining for itself and continue to grow. The first step that we need to take is to prove that that talent pool is a valuable talent pool and should be tapped into. So businesses are always looking for more talent. That does great things for the employment market, and it does great things for the economy. When we first started this out, the main question that we were asked is, well, but could these people even do this work? And in some ways, I have to be honest to say, I'm not really sure that we knew what work people could do or couldn't do. There was really very little data out there. And there still is very little data out there. But we're going to show you a little bit of the data that we have now. But we've been successful in at the time, people would talk to us because it was a neat idea. Now people call us because they've heard about the sort of success that we're having here or that other businesses are having, and they want to take advantage of that opportunity. The difference between what we do and what most agencies do, we partner with agencies, but our focus is on the employer's success. And we're in fact paid by employers to do much of the work that we do so that our success is their success. This is, for us, the client is the employer, and we only get paid when they have success in the work that we do with them, which is to find them people and to help them to be successful in employing those people. We provide end-to-end support. We support the job. We don't think about supporting the individual who comes in as an employee, but rather the way we think about it is that we have a person who comes in who thinks and approaches the world one way, and then a manager or the people they work with who think and approach things differently. And they need to learn how to work together and communicate with one another and to get the best out of each other. And so our support people come in and support from the beginning to the end in an ongoing way to make sure that that relationship is continuously productive. And finally, we know that everything that we do, we need to continue to innovate and find new ways and get into new types of jobs and new geographies and new ways of assessing people and new ways of onboarding, and continue to build and learn from our successes and from the successes of peers and partners that we work with as well. So that's the basis for how we're going to achieve this goal, and we're on our way. Let's see if I can advance this. Yeah, so we talked about some of these numbers, but this gives you a bit of an idea of the number of working age adults in Canada who are on the autism spectrum. And the estimates that are out there, and there's sort of sporadic but reconfirmed numbers, that somewhere between 80 to 85% of individuals on the spectrum are either unemployed or underemployed. And so unemployed or underemployed would mean people who are graduating from high school, graduating from university, and graduating from university with advanced degrees or multiple advanced degrees, and not getting jobs that are commensurate, that align with their ambitions, not because of anything except for lack of openness within the employment community, lack of understanding within the employment community, or most importantly, poor methodologies for assessing those people for what they're really being hired for, rather than for their capability to interview or to feel comfortable in an environment like that. So it's a huge opportunity for employers, and that's what we're trying to sell. And happily, a fair number of employers have taken us up on that offer, and we've been working with them, for some of them, since 2013 and 2014. We've hired many dozens of people for some of these businesses. Some of them are newer relationships that we have, but you can see that we've started to straddle different types of industries, different types of sectors. We have ongoing business with these organizations, and so they seem very happy with the work that we're doing, and we're learning and innovating with them, moving into different areas of the organization all the time. I could call out specific organizations such as the banks. The banks were really great places for us to get started, because we had there is a stereotype within the community that I think to some degree or another we've been responsible for, which is that people in the autism spectrum seem to somehow be aligned with technology jobs. That's really a red herring, as we've learned, and as you'll see in a moment. But what the banks have allowed us to do is to start in areas like that, and then expand ourselves out into lots of different types of jobs. One of the things that we experienced right from the beginning was that people would show up to some of our workshops and to some of our sessions, and they weren't interested in technology at all. And when we started to talk to many of the schools that we work with, and we've developed some amazing relationships with post-secondary institutions in Ontario and across the country, one of the things that we learned is that the larger portion of people who identify themselves to the schools as having a disability and being on the autism spectrum, that's what you have to say about yourself if you want to avail yourself of some of those services, is that they were enrolled in arts rather than science. They weren't necessarily in STEM. And so it showed us that we needed to move past technology and into lots of different places. And so this gives you, if you can see this, hopefully you can see this, this gives you an idea of the sorts of roles that we've hired people into over the last few years. A few things you can see when you look at this list. So one of the things that you can see is that it's a very wide list. The second is that you can see lots of different roles in there. We've hired people into jobs that are strictly administrative, and we've hired people into jobs that are highly specialized. We've hired people into financial jobs, and we've hired people into project coordinator jobs and project management jobs, and into pharmacy. Some of the people who we hired went from I'll give you a couple of examples of the sorts of underemployment that we've seen, and some of the unemployment that we've seen. We hired somebody who hadn't completed their high school and went into testing and then programming in software. We hired an individual with a master's in engineering who was doing inventory and stocking overnight at a Walmart into a financial risk and fraud analysis role. We hired an individual who had multiple degrees in math and physics into an anti-money laundering analytics role. We hired somebody who had worked in a medical clinic who became a facilities manager at a data center and then moved into fraud and anti-money laundering at a bank. So those are some of the examples. You'll see some words here that seem a little bit misleading. One of the words that you'll see is analyst. Our people aren't necessarily what you think of as a typical analyst. That's a word that HR now uses, that when I was in roles at that level, starting my career, would have been an associate. So don't be misled. Our people aren't all hiding in some back room somewhere. They're productive members of teams. The teams report that those people have really helped to improve the way that those businesses operate, the way those teams operate, the way those teams communicate and work with each other. In fact, here are some of the sorts of numbers that we've been able to pull together over the last few years of working with the businesses that we work with. I'll go through these so that you understand them, but keep in mind that when we started this out, there were no numbers on individuals who were working on the autism spectrum and the success that they'd had within the business community. So the first one is 12-month retention. And we've seen consistently around a 90% retention rate for 12 months. That's above any industry average for any type of a job. An example of retention rate in financial services, which is one of our bigger sorts of clients, is around 70%. So that means that after 1 year, 7 out of 10 people are still employed by those companies. In some types of roles, their retention rate is close to 0. So for example, in service industry jobs, retention rates would be so that if you were to hire 10 people in a year, you would be turning over 10 people in a year. In call center jobs, you'd see around a 50% retention rate. So this is a good news story from a business case perspective. In terms of the feedback that we get from managers, about 89% of the people who we've recruited perform as well or better than their peers. 93% onboard at a similar pace compared to their peers, and about 93% require no formal or very minor accommodations. From the hires, we also get feedback, and this is just a subset of the data that we get. But from the hires, about 95% of them feel as though this is a good fit for them. So it may not be the perfect job for them, but most people don't start out in the perfect job anyway. But they feel as though they're capable of performing this job. It's an engaging job, and it's a good place for them to get started in their careers. 85% or more feel that their managers were well prepared to work with them, which means that we've done a pretty good job of educating their managers and supporting their managers in creating environments where those people can be comfortable in their workplace. An interesting statistic that we were asked right from the beginning, because there was no data on it, this is how new things were when we started out, or an example of how new things were. We didn't know, nobody had any data that would say that putting people who are diagnosed with autism to work would make their lives better. Perhaps it would just add more stress. Perhaps it would put more of a burden on them, and they wouldn't be happy with those work environments. But in fact, it was what we expected came to be true, but we were asked to prove that that was the case. And so 97 report that their lives are improved for having a job. And happy to say that everybody's been happy with their relationship with Special Sterna. So what do we do that's different? Well, if you look at this chart, you'll see that it looks pretty similar to what a standard recruitment does look like. But in fact, we actually look at every phase of the process and we do things differently. Our contention is that there are a couple of key things to keep in mind when you're thinking about how to create a recruitment process that's inclusive for individuals on the autism spectrum. One of those things is that the processes that you're undertaking, which includes things like resumes and interviews. Sorry, I'm getting a distraction here again. Excuse me for just one moment.
Thanks, everybody. I'll take you over to a commercial break for one moment. So I'm just going to get a head start. This is Kim here, just turning on my camera. Bear with me. Hello again. I'm just going to get a head start while Alan's taking care of that. And
can you hear me? Yeah,
yep, you're back, and the commercial break is done. No worries,
Yeah.
all good. Thanks.
I'm so sorry. It's hard for me to manage that.
All good.
Okay, let's do this again. Yeah, that's what happens to me. So thanks everybody for bearing with me. Okay, so one is the process. So the process is, we know we've worked with schools of management. We've worked with HR schools and researchers. We know that resumes are a poor tool for determining whether or not a person will be successful in a role that they might go into. And we know that interviews are really poor methods for assessing people for jobs as well. So we don't do those things. In fact, we take an observational approach. We use what you'd call competency-based recruitment as our methodology for determining whether or not a person will be successful in the role. And basically what that means is, can we determine whether or not the person has the skills to do the job? So we do a detailed job analysis with the employer to understand what those skills and competencies would be. And then we match with an assessment of the candidate to see that that candidate has those skills. We don't ask the candidate whether they have the skills. Sure, we would have a conversation with them about it, but we just work with them. And we do it in an environment where those people are comfortable and have the opportunity to show us what they're capable of doing. And that's really just a basic and fundamental difference between our recruitment process and what a standard recruitment process looks like. And lo and behold, some of the businesses that we work with, in fact, have started to adopt those types of practices for their standard recruitment, which creates a much more level field. And what they've reported to us for having changed their own recruitment practices is that they're hiring a different profile of person now than they did before. So that's part of what we do. We look at the entire process. I think I mentioned that. So we look at the way that job descriptions are written, and we take out the things that that would be, you may be familiar with gender bias within job descriptions. Well, there are other types of bias within job descriptions as well. And we scrub every job description that we put out, and we do the recruitment. We educate employers and staff within the employment environment, and we provide support to both the manager and to the individual who's coming in, and help them to develop a relationship with one another. We undertake a structured approach to onboarding people into their roles. We make sure that people don't show up on the first day of employment and have to meet everybody, have to navigate how to get to the workplace, where to store their food, how to deal with the food court if it's in an environment like that, starting the job, getting their IDs, doing it all on day one, and then trying to interpret all the hidden messages about things like what are the work hours and what's the dress code and all that kind of stuff. We just create a structured way for people to slowly engage and understand those things so that there's no confusion, and so that we can deal with things like the confusion that could be caused by the regulations around transit passes, which happens everywhere. Things aren't clear everywhere. And when things aren't clear, then people get confused, and then it leads to breakdowns in relationships that never needed to happen. So we just support that all the way through, and we're there with those employees and employers on an ongoing basis. So that's what leads to the kinds of success that we've seen. I just wanted to end this by talking about some of the things that we're doing in this particular situation, and some of the things that you might want to be thinking about as well. One of the things that we did right early on was we checked in with everybody who we've recruited We've maintained contact with all the employers that we work with, but we've checked in with everybody who we recruited and made sure that they're okay and that they report that they're okay. We've also surveyed them and asked them questions about their employers, about their own situation and about their employers' responses and how well their employers have communicated with them about the change in their work environment and about how long this might go on for and what support they have and that sort of thing. And then we provide that feedback back to employers to help them to better manage themselves for both these employees and for all their employees. We're continuing to recruit for some of the clients that we have. They're committed to actually, there are companies that are recruiting even in this environment, and we're working with those employers now. We're on an ongoing basis, we're consulting with businesses to help them to use this time to look at ways to improve their standard recruitment processes and to apply some of the knowledge that they gained and some of the best practices that we have and that they also have but haven't been able to implement yet to change their recruitment processes. And I'm really excited that our team has undertaken some innovation within the current environment to learn new ways of assessing people where we aren't able to meet with them face to face. And we're also looking at our processes to make sure that we can onboard those people, even if we can't do it in a face-to-face way, and we maintain social distancing. And I think that that's one of the most exciting things about what we're working on now is that we will be better at the end of this than we were when we went into this. We'll be more nimble, more capable, and more reliable in what we do. And I think that our employers are going to see that as well. So I'm going to end it there and apologize for dropping a couple of times, but hopefully we were able to maintain the continuity and understanding. And if there are any questions, I'd be excited to take them.
Alan, thanks for that. That was extremely enlightening. There's some great responses come in. We are running a little late, so we are going to just restrict it to one question, but all the other questions will be answered pretty soon after the event. And we'll be having a larger event as part of the iNOD schedule with Specialist Sterna anyway going forward. So there's one question which has come from where are we? Tani, I think is the person who's keeping the neighbors awake in Seattle. But and that's that you said the organizations pay you to support the employees. What about small non-profits or smaller businesses? Are you working with them to hire a more neurodiverse workforce as well?
Yeah, so we actually have a number of different programs. Our core program is one where we work with employers that pay us. We also have partnerships with some agencies, like federal agencies, or through other organizations such as Jake's House, and we have a partnership where the federal government is funding recruitment. And so that allows us to work with some organizations, some smaller companies that aren't in a position to pay. Usually we ask those businesses those organizations still to pay something for our services. We really, it's critical to us that there's an acknowledgement and a commitment from the employer that they understand that there's value in what we're doing and that there's value in these employees and that nothing really comes for free. But usually the pricing is much more accessible to a smaller business when you undertake a program like that. We work with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce and are offering to their members that kind of a program.
Right.
And we have similar programs all over the place. So yeah, so it's possible. Our goal is to work with everybody that we can.
So there's support and there's mechanisms. That's it. There's a way to be found. That's great.
Yes.
So thanks everybody. Just to reiterate again, all the questions that have been coming in, we will be answering very shortly after the event. But thanks. Great numbers, Alan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Alan. Always a pleasure and always very informative. All right. I'm thrilled to welcome our next guest, Kelly Braun Johnson, and who recently, actually this week, was nominated for the 2020 RBC Women of Influence Award. Congratulations, Kelly. Kelly is an adult diagnosed autistic self-advocate from Montreal. She is a published author and the founder of Completely Inclusive. That's a consultancy firm that teaches businesses how to make their workplaces accessible and inclusive to all. Kelly is a board member of Autism Canada, as well as the co-chair of their ASD Advisory Committee. She is also the secretary of the board of Promo 21, a Montreal nonprofit that employs autistic and adults with intellectual disabilities. Kelly is also hard of hearing and currently learning ASL. Being the proud mother of 2 children with disabilities, they are Kelly's inspiration to make the path to employment and full integration into society easy for others. And in Kelly's spare time, just kidding. Without further ado, we're delighted to welcome Kelly Braun Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'll just jump right in order to save time. So what I did is I put a whole bunch of my labels at the beginning. So thank you for that introduction, Kim. Yes, I am also the founder of Completely Inclusive, a consultancy here in Montreal that teaches businesses how to make themselves inclusive and accessible. But I am also a late diagnosed autistic self-advocate. I also have dysthymia, which is a chronic low-level depression. I'm non-binary. I consider myself a mix of male and female, so I don't go by the standard gender norms. I'm a mother, and I'm a mixed heritage person of color. So why do I put all those interesting labels out there at the same time? It's because I represent an average employee, and it's to show that there's often an intersection in issues in the workplace, and that these kind of different intersecting needs have to be accommodated for. So why is neuro-inclusion important? This is basically my goal, is to make sure that everyone can bring their best self to work every day without being distracted, trying to mask part of themselves so that they can be as productive as possible. What happens is when you have workers who are not able to bring their full selves to work, they're going to be distracted and very spending a lot of energy trying to be normal. So like I said, I was a late diagnosed adult, so I went through all my education background and half of my career life basically not knowing that I was autistic, and I was trying so hard to be so-called normal that I spent all my energy and all my time in my day trying to fight those feelings. So I was fighting against sensory overload issues. I was concerned about how I was coming across, if I was communicating properly, knowing that I was not fitting in, knowing that I was not necessarily doing things exactly like other people were, and trying then, instead of doing a task in a way that was easiest for me, doing the task the way that somebody told me I should be doing it that way, which was not necessarily as efficient or productive as I could have been. So I'll leave this one up for a little bit. This is all our numbers, and I don't want to just throw numbers at people because that's no fun. But this is the part of the talk where normally if we were in a room together, I would say, look around the room and let's look at these numbers. Because if you have 10 employees, you're going to have somebody with some sort of neurodivergence. So what is neurodivergence? That is basically a difference in brains. And we believe that there are different brains that are good for different tasks and different challenges. And that is how this human variance brings, it brings different skills and benefits basically to the world. So we know that 5 to 11% of Canadians identify as LGBTQ+. And what's the 5 to 11? It's not because we're confused. It's because the 5% is the basic average across all demographics in Canada. And the 11% is actually the 18 to 35 demographic. They're more likely to be open and disclose that they are lesbian, gay, bi, trans, or queer. So why do I put that in neurodivergence? That's because there's a huge intersection between autistic people and the trans and gay community. So it's not that all of us are, it's that a lot of us, there's just a huge overlap. And we also know that 1 in 10 is homosexual. So that's why I include them in there with the neurodivergence. 1 in 5 adults will experience a mental health issue in any given year. To me, when I saw that, it's a heavy statistic. It means if you do have a mental health issue, you're not alone. They can be chronic, they can be short-term, they can be episodic. But this is something that will touch everybody's lives at some point. So when we're talking about neurodiversity, we're not just talking about one subset of people that's born that way and we can kind of put them aside and never think about it. We also have to understand that this can happen to us. We can become included, and then we can also need to have accommodations in the workplace. You might have started out in your workplace totally fine, not having any issues, and then boom, a mental health issue occurs in your life or in somebody that you know, your loved one, and it's going to cause changes and you're going to need accommodations in your workplace. 8% of adults will experience a major depression at least once in their life. So again, that's when I say, look around the room. There's always going to be at least, the person next to you. If it's not the person next to you, it's the one right after that. And 1 in 7 people is neurodivergent. So that stat is the only one that comes from the UK. I don't have the Canadian stat for that, but I'm going to presume that it's pretty similar. And so neurodivergent is basically autism, ADHD, the learning disabled, intellectual or cognitive disabilities. And again, I'm using medical terms as opposed to the social model of disability. But just to say, we're here, we're not going away, we're hiding in plain sight, I say. And well, we know for sure, if you have 10 employees, you know that there's at least one who's neurodivergent. If you do not know that they are already, it's because they haven't told you. It's because they are scared to disclose. And so this is super important for people to know. We know that 64% of employees are scared to disclose either before an interview or they're scared to disclose during while they're employed because they fear either retribution, they fear that they will not get the job, or they fear that they will be passed over for a promotion. So they're here, and this is not about, this whole talk is not just about changing your workplace in order to become welcoming for people that you're trying to hire and attract. It's to make the people you already have in your workplace comfortable so that they're able to be accommodated in the way that works best for them, and they can then concentrate on their work and be fully productive and fully comfortable in their daily work. So what can you do right now? Right now, really super easy change to make is to start using inclusive language. And one really interesting way is instead of saying, hey guys, or hey dudes, you can say, hey everyone, hi folks, hey friends, or co-workers, hey teammates, and take out the gendered terms that we often use. That's one really easy way right off the bat. Also, just stating in your workplace that you are now open to accommodating and you are trying to accommodate, which means that you can make a statement on your website. You can say, look, we are trying to be accessible. We are in the process of working on our workplace culture. And just by saying and being open, even if it's not 100% perfect, you don't have to be 100% perfect. But by saying that you're willing to start accommodating, by saying that you're willing to be welcoming and open and that you're willing to make changes, that opens the door to make people feel more at ease to either apply or to start to disclose when they're in the workplace. Because obviously you can't go around walking around to everybody and saying, hey, are you gay? Do you need something? You can't do that, right? So what you want to do is encourage a culture where your workers are able to come to you. One way to do this, the other tip really, is to start doing anonymous surveys, because you need to start tracking your numbers. You need to start tracking what kind of diversity you have within your workplace, who you're already working with, and what you can do. So an anonymous survey is a great way to start to kind of check the temperature, check the pulse of what's going on in your workplace. You can ask if they identify with neurodivergence, if they or if they identify with being trans or gay or anything. And then you can also ask what they would need to make their lives easier at work every day. And you're going to be really surprised, I think, by the answers, that a lot of the times what people say that they need is very, very different from what you might have thought they needed. So that's the third thing is ask. You have to ask. You don't assume people's needs. When we talk about making benefits in the workplace, you know, a lot of the times they will, I know many companies have offered, you know, free breakfast or free pizza Friday, or even beer from 5 to 7 on Fridays, whatever it was. But if that's not something that your employees put an importance on, who is that benefit actually for? And if you're spending money on a benefit that is not actually benefiting and changing the lives of the people that you're working for, then I would call that wasted money, right? So can you afford to keep spending money on benefits that are not actually benefiting the people that you want to benefit? Now, common accommodations are not actually that expensive. We already know from, we have the statistics in Canada. We know that the most common accommodations cost under $500. So if we're talking about investing in the lifetime of an employee, we're talking about hiring and retention, and we already know that, like Alan was saying, our retention rate is much, much higher. We're much, much more loyal. So that's a fantastic investment. When it'll cost less than $500 Canadian, that's really peanuts. So like I said, you might be surprised by some of the common accommodations that you might see that people might ask for. It could be wearing sunglasses indoors. It could be wearing earplugs or noise canceling headphones. It could be alternative seating arrangements. So I mentioned the bouncy ball. I am actually sitting on a bouncy ball right now in my home office. That's how I sit every day. I also have a pedal station, so I can actually pedal my feet like a bicycle and sit on my bouncy ball chair and work like this and be very productive. It might mean lower lighting or natural lighting. I know people that when they're standing directly under a bright light, the light is so oppressive to them that they cannot then have a conversation with somebody. They pretty much shut down and are not able to take any sort of directions or have any sort of meaningful communication. Fidgets or stim, I have my fidgets here at my desk. And so when I say these things and having these things, I think a lot of people go, well, that's really not a big deal, and it's not. But you'd be surprised the places that I've worked at before that have said, no, I am not allowed to have these things on my desk. I am not allowed, you know, it has to be, every desk has to look the same, and you're not allowed to have, you know, stim toys or things like that. Or, you know, you're not allowed to wear sunglasses inside. That looks weird. And so just making those little changes and allowing people to do these little things that really don't affect anybody else, this changes everything. Walking meetings are one that I love. I would love to have walking meetings, and I have yet to work in a company where I had walking meetings, but I would have absolutely, that was, for me, that would have been my #1 perk, being able to have walking meetings. And again, for me, my accommodation is written instead of verbal communication. I just don't do well with a lot of information coming at me. So let me go back here. And sorry, there we go. So I hope that gives you a good overview of basically the whys, you know, like I said, the time is now to make these changes, and can you really afford to not start to become more inclusive and more accommodating, especially when it's so easy and there's so many little ways that can honestly make big changes in a person's life and allow them to become more productive, more loyal. Does anyone have any questions?
Kelly, hi, thanks for that. That was excellent. There was one question, and because we're running a little bit late, we'll keep it to the one question. You quoted a statistic on a slide that was 8% of adults.
Yep.
Somebody asked a question, was it 8% or 80%? And by the time I'd written it down and the question came through, the slides had moved, so I couldn't understand didn't retain the context. So if you can just clarify that that percentage and possibly just go over that again.
It's 8%. So 8% of all adults in Canada will experience a major depression at least once in their lifetime.
Right. Okay. I think just to say thank you. That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank
Very
you.
enlightening. So thanks so much, Kelly. Really appreciate it. Right, we're going to move straight on now to the presentation from Dave Baines. Dave, if you're there and you're ready in a moment, I'm about to introduce you. I've known Dave for quite some time, actually not quite as long as it feels like, Dave, but he is without doubt one of the leading international experts on assistive supportive and adaptive technologies. Dave can speak for hours and hours on the subject that he is very much an authority on. He is retained by organizations like the World Health Organization, the United Nations, and travels the world speaking at events and is at here, the international conference. Papers are always incredibly well received. So, Dave, over to you. Dave's one challenge is that he doesn't do 15 minutes, so you're going to have to this time, Dave, but good luck, and over to you.
That's great. Thanks, Pete. I'm just going to try and share my screen. Get us started from there. Okay. Is that showing up for everybody?
Yes, Dave, we can't see you.
That's perfect. That's exactly exactly the way it should be. I think it's stopped doing that now. Frustrations of technology. Let's get that one up. Try again. Okay. Yes, thank you. Yeah, Pete. It just feels like longer to you that you've known me.
It does. It does. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm sure it's
no. We'll take it as a positive today. Thank you so much for having the opportunity to the session. I'm going to focus and be reasonably brisk, as Pete says. Sticking to time is not my natural strength. So actually, in the spirit of using technology for all purposes, I'm actually just setting a stopwatch on my phone next to me as we speak. So it's set for 15 minutes to remind me to shut up at some point. And on that note, I'm going to go straight in to some of the things that hopefully we can talk about today. I want to talk to you a little bit about how technology supports people who fall into the autistic spectrum, people who fall as neurodiverse. And it's really interesting when you start to search for information about technology and autism. The huge overload of what you see is actually around children. If you do any searching around technology, you're going to see huge amounts about how technology supports people who are under the age of 11 in most cases. And
Dave,
yeah.
Can I just say your audio is a little faint? I'm getting a few comments about that. So can you just adjust it ever so slightly?
Okay, is that any better if I lean right forward?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Probably even better that we don't see you if you're doing that. Thank you.
Absolutely, because the camera would be pointing straight up my nose. So I think at that note, we'll move on very quickly. So I wanted to try and draw in a range of strands around technology and how technology can support and provide an accommodation to people with autism in the workplace. I think some of the interesting things about technology is one of the things it can help us do is to reduce overload. I think it was Michael spoke earlier and used the word meltdown. And often those are triggered by an overload of sensory stimuli. And surprisingly, technology can actually help us deal with that. When I was talking to people who talk about environmental overload, one of the areas they said was really helpful was actually working at a computer. And they talked about how when they're working at a computer, they begin to develop such a tight focus upon the screen that they find that sensory distraction has less impact than otherwise. And often that's better the larger the screen, so they can retain visual focus. But equally well, people talking about using headphones, earbuds, AirPods, and so on. Sometimes to put background music on to reduce overload from sounds in the environment, but actually also sometimes using sort of mindfulness type sounds, forest sounds, sea, and sometimes just plain white noise. Again, just to use the technology to blank out what's going on in the background. And these technologies can be quite helpful to people, and they're very easily made available. They're mainstream. They're part of what can be made available to anybody, and some people might find useful. But we recognize that in the modern day, that digital technologies in themselves can be extremely distracting. Before we started this session, one of the things I went through all of my task manager on my PC and turned off all the things that might flash up on the screen while I was talking. So turning off all my email notifications and closing down my email, closing down messaging services like Slack and Skype, making sure that non-essential websites aren't being used. In this case, I've got my mobile phone on, but sometimes switching that off. And helping people to go through these different things to reduce distraction. Setting up alerts to let other people know that you're focused on your task and there are other times to reach you. All of these are ways in which we can reduce some of that digital distraction and digital overload to allow people with autism to feel that they are being productive and are not getting that extra stimulation which causes create. If you're in something like Windows, you'll find there's a little tool in there called Focus Assist. And Focus Assist in Windows is actually something which a lot of people with autism say they find helpful, because what it does is it switches off those notifications. It switches off those distractions and make that easy for you. And on the screen, we're talking about, I can set that to off, stops all distractions. I can set it to only priorities, which might be particular messages from specific people or specific apps. Or we can set alarms only on those things that we really need to do. And as you can see on there, we can set that to be during certain times, when I'm duplicating my display, and so on. So we can reduce the overload. And reducing that overload makes the workplace a more accommodating place for people with autism. We can also look at specific tasks that may actually make the workplace more challenging for some people. And let's remember when we're talking about this, we're talking about diversity. Not everything that I mention as technology is appropriate for every person who's on that spectrum or who would be included as neurodiverse. One of the things that people talk about is the problems of new experiences and preparing for new experiences. And not everything in the workplace can be routine, not everything can be planned for and prepared for. But things like having to travel to new places, walking from office to office and so on, support can be given there through technology. Some of those things we would know about really clearly. So navigation systems, lots of people use things like Google Maps in their car. Google Maps can equally work to help somebody have focus and focus on where they've got to get without dealing with the distractions. And equally well, other people have said one of the things that they really like at the moment, because it allows them to navigate calmly and quietly, is the advent of augmented reality in something like Google Maps. On the screen, which hopefully many of you can see, there's a picture there of a navigation system. This is actually part of Google Maps. And it's actually, in this case, what you do is you're walking along, you glance at your screen, hold it up from time to time, and it overlays the real world with directions. And in this case, follow the fox. That simplicity, that merging of information into reality, for some people on the spectrum is a very good way of managing information overload. But there are other tools that are really helpful, particularly where a new task, a new encounter is envisaged. It might be meeting a new client, it might be going to a new group or meeting, or it might be just simply a new task that's come into your workflow. And programs like CanPlan can be really helpful to some people in helping them sequence not only the task, but the way in which they're going to prepare for that task. One of the things that people who are using technology to accommodate their own needs talk to me about is the need to be able to, in advance, sequence that experience in their own head, so that actually they're prepared for what might happen. And planning tools, in this case this one called CanPlan, are a really helpful way for some people, particularly where that sequence can be shown in a set of photos. So a set of images that say what you've got to do. Now, this is a really simple one. It's probably designed for people with learning disabilities, how to make a cup of coffee. But actually somebody else will say, well, that's not as crazy as it sounds, because my workplace changed the coffee machine. And that caused me actually a lot of anxiety, because instead of just having a kettle, they put in this machine, which seems to take about 17 steps to produce a tiny cup of espresso. And actually that did make me quite stressed. And actually I put that in place, the sequence of things I needed to do. And I would look at it as I did each step and built my confidence. And as I did that more and more often, I no longer needed those prompts. Moving on from that sort of sense of planning and anticipation, at the heart for many people when we talk about autism are these challenges of communication. I think somebody asked earlier about how we address the needs of people who are non-verbal, and said that about a third of all people with autism are non-verbal. Technology does allow us to build in systems for alternative and augmentative communication. And I could genuinely speak for the rest of the day just about alternative and augmentative communication, but then Pete would boot me out the room anyway. But the use of symbols, of text, the use of different modes of communication, which are integrated, which allow people with autism to choose the form and channel of communication that is most appropriate to their needs and which communicates clearly to a communication partner, is extremely strong. And the technology we carry every day, our mobile phones, tablets, actually let us have the tools to communicate in different forms available to us at all times. So a classic example would be a product which actually allows you to type what you want to say and then speaks it out for you. There are other technologies, obviously, that then listen to what somebody is saying back to you and present that as text. But the interesting thing about technology is it doesn't actually care a huge amount what your diagnosis is. So technology is designed and intended for one set of needs can actually benefit people with other needs. This multimodality of communication is really powerful. So if you look at something like Zoom, everyone is using Zoom. But for instance, for people who get overload from too much speech, they can actually augment the speech within Zoom by adding captions, turning down the sound and just following the text as people speak. Now, for some people, that's actually, again, really, really powerful because they can choose the form of communication to follow. That wasn't designed for people who are neurodiverse. It was intended for those people with hearing loss and deaf. But the benefit is there. So understanding the potentiality of technology to support people who are neurodiverse and on the autistic spectrum is very powerful and helpful to us. And that naturally leads us into what is probably the cause of the year, which is moving towards remote working. The image you see on the screen here I actually did a little bit of work with a guy, this was a guy, about his perfect work environment. And other than putting a desk and a chair in, that image was his perfect work environment. I said, you know, that's actually quite difficult to do in an open plan office. And he said, yeah, that's pretty challenging. But he said, it is what I can have at home. If I want to, I can set an office up at home with no pictures, nothing on the walls. I can set it up with nothing to distract me other than my desk and my computer. It lets me think about creating the most supportive environment for my needs. It lets me think about how I want the room lit. For instance, there are times when actually softening the lighting reduces stimuli for me. It lets me reduce the number of people who knock on doors and come in and want to talk to me. It creates a safe space, reduces sound, and so on. It allows me access to services. I choose the decor that calms me. And it means I can use just communications and alerts that are actually of benefit to me. So remote working has the potential of offering the most supportive environment for somebody because it allows them to design it specifically around their needs. How we accommodate that in the workplace, maybe that we allow that to be something that happens 5 days a week, 4, 3 days a week. The business requirements and the person of the user begin to blend together. There is a degree of compromise. I mean, you'll be able to take some elements of that most supportive environment and apply them in a shared office space. Others are best applied at home. One of the other areas that people talk a great deal about how they use technology to support their needs is around community support. For the employer, recognizing that people may use technology to provide them with forms of support that otherwise might mean them being less productive or less focused and certainly more anxious, stressed, or more likely to be overwhelmed, is something which actually can be recognized. Some of those are based on social media channels. And I do know that of employers who have backtracked on things like blocking Facebook in the workplace to allow people who use that as a source of support. But it also means perhaps sometimes letting people use their mobile phone to provide them with some of that personal support. Great little product, which I was looking at the other day. It's a product called Wisdo. I don't know if anybody's ever come across this. It's a mobile phone app. It's available for Apple and Android. And it does something really quite interestingly, which is it connects you to people who have got a shared experience similar to yours. So if you are somebody who has autism, you talk about the things that you maybe find difficult. So here we have the section on autism. Say you're somebody who has struggled with emotional and physical expression. Is that something you're struggling with now, or something you've struggled with and coped with in the past? You mark up whether you've been there or you're there now. Then when somebody is experiencing that, they are contacted and connected to people who have been there. So you're not got that sense of isolation that this is just me, but people who've shared your experience can talk a bit about how they've addressed that. And that can be very powerful. It's really powerful as we move on to thinking about, with this expansion of neurodiversity, this sense of growth of numbers and recognition that people are different, we need to think again about how our services are managed. And that's really important to employers. And integrating services with that technology is something which is very powerful for people. One of the products that I've been looking at for the last 3 years or so and monitoring is a product called Brain in Hand. Now, Brain in Hand comes through a website, it comes through an app in terms of delivery into the hands of people. But what it does actually is integrate what are services for people with autism, mental health, brain injury, or learning difficulty. It integrates real-time services with real people into something which is available through technology. If we are going to meet the demand for the future, If we expect employers to accommodate these full range of need, technology is one of the ways in which we reach people. And technology which affects a broad part of the workforce, it's not just about people who are diagnosed with autism, it's also about people with mental health conditions or learning difficulties. That is a huge benefit to employers because it actually can be rolled out and supported across the whole workforce. And something like Brain in Hand is really helpful to help us remember things, manage daily routines, initiate and plan tasks, to cope with change, to cope with the unexpected, and hence to manage some of our anxiety and stress. You're using the mobile application, and many people do use the mobile application. We can see some of the components of something like Brain in Hand and how different people will want to use different parts. My diary, my activities sequenced.
Okay.
Oh, somebody there. Problems that we might face and some of the solutions that we might put in place. Using a tool whether it's a small business with an individual or a large business thinking about rolling this out across an entire workforce, can add huge value and ease the pressure upon managers to be all things to all people. Employers are not experts. We need to give them the tools to help them. If those tools can be delivered in a very portable, mobile way, that is really going to benefit the people that we want to support. And the technology isn't going to stop there. One of the things I can promise you, and one of the joys of my job, is I get to play with technology. I am that geek that Michael mentioned earlier on. And some of the things that are coming down the channels will support people more. Areas like remote presence, robotics, where people cannot cope easily with travel, with working in new groups, in remote settings. The idea of setting up a remote presence, where from that safe environment, they can connect to a group, to a meeting, to a conference, to a workshop, is going to be powerful. The use of artificial intelligence to predict and anticipate and automate not only the ways we work, but to recognize, for instance, that our heartbeat is raised, we're showing symptoms of anxiety and stress, and to adjust the environment around us to reduce stimuli. That's going to lead us into the use of wearables, where we've got support available on our wrist, on our glasses, in our ears at all times. And for some people, technologies like virtual reality are being very supportive in letting them practice and experience new environments in a safe, secure, and managed way. So technology can be a problem. It can overload people with autism. But the scaffolds, the support it builds around individuals are going to be fundamental to the way we accommodate people and welcome a neurodiverse workforce into our workplace.
Dave,
thanks very much.
That's great. Thanks ever so much. Enlightening and just touching on so many things there that everybody wants to know more about. I'm absolutely sure. Fascinating as always, Dave, and thank you so much. We have not got time for any questions as far as you're concerned. There are some coming through, so we'll sort those out after the event. We're going to move right on now to Marilyn Ellis at Futures First and Autism Job Club, and Kim talking about the Higher Autism Blueprint, and King giving you an overview of resources and models that can be used. So straight over to you guys now, okay?
Thank you, Pete. Kim, am I up first?
Yep, take it away, Marilyn.
Okay. Hi again, everybody. Marilyn Ellis here with Autism Job Club, Futures Found, and lots of other affiliations. I'm just going to share, I said I was coming back to talk to you about Higher Autism, a blueprint, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see what we condensed that down to. Okay. All right, so Higher Autism, a blueprint for a neurodiverse workforce. Over the last year and a half of our Ontario Labour Market Partnership project, we kind of distilled things down to this pyramid. You can see that you've got the employer at the bottom, who is the base of the strong foundation of hiring a diverse workforce. And we've got the employee at the top. He's the pinnacle. They're the pinnacle. And we've divided it in 5 different areas. I'll just read through those quickly, and can be in different orders. But we've got the first stage to becoming a neurodiverse workforce at work is to have champions or to have an actual neurodiversity and inclusion policy directive. You need the support of managers, supervisors, and the like, and natural mentors usually pop out. You need an authenticated full cycle hiring process. Some of our speakers have talked about how you adjust the process, and it doesn't always work to, full out reject resumes and do the model that Specialist Sterna mentioned, but there can be other methods that can be put in place. Finally, you need a continuous learning organization. E-learning and other methods of learning can come in there. An ongoing committee to support this, or outside coaching. And at the bottom, you'll see a little gear from custom to turnkey, a little adjustment module. Because what we found is some companies are able to do this internally. You can look at somebody like Walgreens, who led the charge in hiring folks on the spectrum. And also there's turnkey operations and everything in between. An example of a turnkey model would be Project Search Halton that we put in place. And okay, and I don't think there'll be time for questions. Don't worry, we've got lots of resources and models. I'm just going to stop sharing. We will share, we've got a toolkit for employers, and I'm going to hand it over to Kim. But before I do, I had to share my t-shirt. Here's my favorite expression, show and tell today. It's a neurodiverse universe. So that's what I'm known for. I debated wearing it today and didn't.
Surprised
over
you
to
didn't.
you.
All right, thank you,
I put that
Marilyn.
in your bio as your favorite phrase, Marilyn.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Marilyn. Always a pleasure working with you. Always so informative. So I'm going to fly through my piece right now. I was going to share some models as well as some resources for everybody. We will have to, and we will share information after. If you are comfortable staying on for a couple of extra minutes, we would love to have you, and we will continue. Just bear with me 1 second as I pull up my screen, and I'll keep chatting. As you can see, there are several models and approaches out there that are demonstrated and proving to be successful in the workplace and to support employment support agencies. So those, we've heard from a number of from great individuals today. Thank you to you all, and just snippets of some of the information and models and tools that are out there. Again, we will share those going forward. Just bear with me, I'm trying to multitask here, so I gotta get up. Hold on, guys, too many things open. There we go, share my screen. So I'm gonna share myself back at you. So just to drill down a little deeper, I wanted to walk through these with everybody, but these are some of the key elements from successful autism and neuro-inclusive employment models that we've seen through our work. So I'm not going to have the time to go through them all, and but just so you can quickly read through them all, and it just drills down a little bit deeper as to what Marilyn spoke about. So leadership, buy-in from the top down, innovative and accessible approaches. Again, I'm trying not to add any content to it, but it's really difficult to do that. Inclusion focus, so not just integrating and hiring people, but full inclusion, which Kelly and Alan have talked greatly about. A multi-agency approach, bringing in like people on this call. I'm sure many people have tools and approaches, and in every region, in every country, there is people out there that can help put these pieces into place. Job coach support, which is often, it's a very valuable and successful tool, and is often covered through various funding, depending on what area in the region you're in. Your natural supports and your coworkers goes back to the full inclusion focus. Training your organization and giving them empowering them to fully appreciate the integration of people with on the autism spectrum and with neurodifferences and disabilities. Structured integration and support, supportive performance management, effective communication, on both sides. So teaching us to understand and learning to communicate with people that are not necessarily the same as we are. Technology, person-centric, we believe that, as the bottom says, that people are at the core. It's not about giving somebody some technology and sending them on their way, but working and taking the time to get to know people and understand what tools and supports they need, which comes naturally and organically through supportive performance management. Career development and retention strategies. So you get the employee in the door, and how do you keep them there, and how do you develop them, and what are the tools that you're using for those? So, and that is important to everybody as they develop throughout their career professionally. So that's the micro version of that particular slide. I'm going to quickly touch on resources because, again, a lot of resources were covered today. Specialist Sterna, Autism Job Club, Completely Inclusive, Distinctability. Reach out anytime. We want to be a hub for sharing and connecting people, especially in these times when we have to stay apart. We can still, and I find more and more people bridging together to share the tools and solutions they have. And we're always happy for introductions or to share introductions to start bridging the gap and breaking down those silos. The good news is, and I did see a couple of questions coming through, no matter what size your organization, whether you're a large corporation, a not-for-profit, small business, there are resources for any budget available out there, whether it be online, through your community support agencies, your employment support, disability agencies who often have services, like for example in Ontario, it's Employment Ontario, as well as ODSP, that have specialists and teams that can assist you with moving your inclusion and your policies forward and your goals. Flying through now. So yes, your other resources, sorry, just getting to that. Hold on a second. So again, any size your organization is, if you want to reach out to Distinctability to us at any time, and we can help you point you in the right direction and just chat with you through what would work best for your particular needs, depending on what size you are. I will mention this, we are thrilled to be working in partnership with Specialist Sterna, so Distinctability and Specialist Sterna, and we are just finalizing the development of a 10-modular e-learning series called Autism and Neurodiversity in the Workplace. And it guides you through, it's very cost effective, it guides through every stage from setting up your work environment to understanding the business case to what exactly autism is and what it is not. We are absolutely thrilled to be using the work and incorporating the work of actually autistic blogger Rebecca Burgess from The Art of Autism. So that is something that will be a very cost-effective resource that will allow you and your teams to understand some of the areas that we touched upon today. So that's the micro version of it. Like I said, going forward, we'll certainly expand upon any of these, or again, reach out at any time. My screen is going up. We'd also like to recognize that we were going to give inclusive employment awards out to employers that were already doing great things in this space and successfully and gainfully employing people on the autism spectrum and with neurodifferences. So we'd reached out and we'd asked for nominations. So we will present those awards going forward. We actually had an award designed by autistic artist Aiden Lee, who did an incredible job. Unfortunately, I can't show you a picture of that today because it's coming up on this size on my computer. So those will have to be shared at a later date, but we would like to recognize some of the employers that were nominated and received numerous nominations. So that was Halton Healthcare, congratulations. Piper Foods, which is McDonald's, or a franchise of McDonald's, Film.ca, Audicon, and Goal Line Solutions. Congratulations, and keep up the great work. We need to get more organizations like you, and there are many others that we can't share today. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm quickly going to pass you over to Sherry Lozier. And Sherry, bear with me one sec. Undo screens. A lot of things moving around here. Hold on a second, Sherry. I can't get off my slide here right now. There we go. Okay. Sorry, guys. There's a lot of things to move around here. All right. So Sherry is going to cover off some follow-up and some items that we're going to be discussing. And Sherry, your bio seems to have disappeared from my. So I'm going to let you jump right in, and I'm going to introduce you after the fact for the sake of time. Sorry about that.
Okay. No worries. Thank you, Kim. And if I can just say really quickly, you know, I haven't been working with you guys for ages and ages, like some of the speakers, but in the time that we've worked together, you guys have taken a conference that was meant to be this, you know, huge full day event and retooled it for this particular environment, which is nothing short of amazing. So congratulations on that, you guys. So thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to say just a few quick words. So first of all, I think it's important to recognize, as I'm sure everyone does, that our world is changing right before our eyes today. And being able to adapt to those kinds of changes is one of the human qualities that's allowed us to continue to survive and thrive after a millennia. So it's our hope, though, that we can manage through and eventually come out on the other side of this current global crisis, and that the innovation and technology will continue to help us to do that in ways we never expected, and especially in these particular communities with neurodiversity. One of the ways that we're able to facilitate and fuel that innovation is to continually look at information we have and how it can be applied in different ways. And that's one of my superpowers. So to help Distinctability and Autism Job Club continue to do that in a way that supports the neurodiverse population, we're hoping that you will all be willing to help us out by, first of all, taking part in a short survey after the conference is completed. And this survey only has a few questions, but it's going to be really vital in helping us to understand the resources that are needed to exponentially change the lives of those who are neurodiverse. Help us create even better events for the future, help us focus the innovation and exploration in areas needed most, and also help us connect organizations, technologies, and people that can change lives. We do have another ask of this community, though, and that is that we are looking for a number of members from this conference today to assist us with further understanding. So if you're willing and able to help with a more in-depth survey, a focus group, or contributing to an advisory committee, please let us know on the follow-up survey that we will be sending out. Now, Kim, if I'm not mistaken, I think you're sending that out through Eventbrite, but you can expect that everybody will be getting those within the next day. And we recognize that time is money, and we truly are valuing the contribution of the community-minded people who are willing to commit to helping enhance this process. So we have a special thank you for those who are willing to do that. So if you've indicated on the survey that you can help with the more in-depth information exploration, the focus group, the advisory committee, to say thank you, our speakers will actually be providing us with some upcoming workshops and presentations that will be part of a series that has a fee attached to it. However, we're going to be offering that to you free of charge if you're going to be willing to put that extra time and effort in, and you've gotten a taste of what these presenters have available and how much learning there potentially is. So we are looking forward to working with you additionally in the future. We hope very much that you'll take part in answering the questions that are on the survey and helping to, as I said, fuel what we can do going forward with this organization, with all of the technologies and resources that are out there and available. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sherry. And just because it is a neurodiverse universe, I'm going to do things a little differently, and I'm going to give your bio and do a quick introduction for you now before we hand it over to Pete, and we'll do a wrap. So Sherry's an internationally certified trained professional and applied neuroscience certified coach. Sherry has founded and leads Mindwave Company. Mindwave is a Canadian leader empowering people to break down barriers to independence and self-determination, working with social enterprise-based businesses, impacting the world around them in a positive way, creating collaborative, innovative leaders and inclusive teams with a healthy, productive environment. Thank you, Sherry. Pete, over to you.
Sherry, that's great. I think we can all chip in as far as that's concerned. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to everybody that stayed on, and the majority of people have.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, we have overrun by about 15 minutes, I think. But I think that's testament to the fact that everybody's contribution and presentations have been so informative and thought-provoking and entertaining. So if we have provided something to you that has made you think, that has created in you a position where you are more informed than you were when you started, and perhaps has made you smile as you reflect back on some of the things that Michael said, especially, then I think we've achieved our objectives as far as iNOD is concerned. I'd like to say a massive thank you to the sponsors and the supporters as far as the event is concerned, and a huge thank you to the guys that delivered the presentations so impressively, and in such difficult circumstances, to compress all your passion and your information and knowledge into such short initial tasters. But iNOD is a journey, and I'm going to leave you with a line from a very famous song here, which somebody, hopefully without googling it, can guess what it might be. But it's called, the line is, "The point of the journey is not to arrive." Okay, very famous line from a very famous song, and that's what iNOD's all about, really. We are here to continue to provide services and support to individuals and organisations who provide services and support. So thank you so much for this first of many iNOD events, and there will be more coming down the pipe with our sponsors, showcases, and with the experts that we have now and the others that we'll draw in. Kim, have you got anything more to say as far as wrapping?
No, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a journey and a learning experience, and we look forward to many, many more ahead. And we look forward to talking with you all in a more personable way moving forward. So please reach out anytime. We love conversations, and we love anybody who's like-minded in this space. The door is always open.
And we've had some lovely messages from people who thought that the last 2 hours has been absolutely worthwhile. Thanks so much.
That's it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys. Thanks, team.